Marise Chiverella was a sweet 9-year-old girl who was just simply walking to school when she was kidnapped in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Now, in February 2022, her predator would finally be identified, but the question remained, why did he choose Marise? Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and today we're going to be discussing the true crime case of Marise Chiverella. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard this on Crime Junkies. They covered this case. I wanted to cover this case because there was an update in this case just this year. There's been a lot of unsolved, unidentified perpetrators and the actual victims being solved this year, and it's a huge break in the true crime world, so I wanted to cover this because of that fact. Now, on March 18th of 1964, 9-year-old Marise Ann Chiverella left home to walk to school. This was just simply a 10-minute walk to school. She was seen carrying canned goods, and that was that of beets and pears, and she was meaning to give this to her teacher, Sister Josephine. This was in honor of feast day at St. Joseph's Parochial School in Hazleton. Now, at some point during her walk to school, this is when she was abducted. At around 1 p.m., a man was teaching his nephew how to drive, and this was near an old abandoned mine that had since turned into just a garbage dump. People just went there, they threw their trash, they just didn't care. And this is when he notices something unusual. He thought he saw a large doll just kind of laying there in the mine. Why would there be a large doll in a mine? But this large doll would be determined to be Marise. She was bound by the wrists and ankles with one of her shoelaces. It was determined that she was sexually assaulted and then she was strangled to death. The local authorities that investigated this case, they thought it was a local priest that was the culprit because it was the same priest that was suspected of murder in Bristol, Pennsylvania, but it turned out not to be him. They also thought it was an exhibitionist in the area, but this exhibitionist ended up committing suicide after the police asked him to come in for a polygraph test. So 2 suspects down, and nobody left to really think of who did this to Marise Chiverella. So in the decades following the murder, there was more than 250 members of the Pennsylvania State Police that had been assigned to Marise's case, but nothing ever came of it. This police file is 4,700 pages, over 4,700 pages long. This is how big this police file is. Now, Marise's parents died not knowing what happened to their little girl. Her older brother, Ron, said that he remembered what a special relationship that they had, and that when they found out she had died, the family was in a complete state of desperation. They were in shock. Before she was found, they just didn't know they were just in a desperate state because they wanted to find their daughter. And then when they found out what happened to her and when they found her body, they just were in shock. Ron said that there were specific family members on March 19th, 1964, that his family members were crying, they were screaming, they were rolling around on the floor in complete agony, that Marise was dead, and that the house was in complete disarray. His father was in complete shock. He was in a zombie-like state, and his mother was in a catatonic state, and she needed to be sedated because that's how hard this hit this family. His parents were hit so hard by the death of their child, not that it wouldn't hit any other family like this, but for such a smaller town, a family, to lose their child so quick and to not really think about, oh hey, this might be the last time I'm sending my child to school, not having that on their brain, nobody's really going to think that, but I can't even imagine what they would have felt like. In 2020, the State Police of Pennsylvania had help from an 18-year-old college freshman named Eric Schubert. He had done some genealogical research for a hobby, as a lot of people do now. They do a lot of genealogical research for a hobby, for their family, for their friends. But he had kind of an edge on other people. He had also helped police with searches for suspects as well. After Eric spent about 20 hours a week for 18 months researching this case, and researching a suspect. He finally narrowed in on one suspect, James Forte. Now, James Forte was a local bartender who was considered a suspect, but he had a criminal record, but he wasn't really they didn't really suspect him. He ended up dying at the age of 38 in 1980 by natural causes. Well, technically it was a heart attack, but this lead about Forte was so compelling to the point of which they exhumed his body so they could retrieve DNA from his body. And they took the DNA sample they found on Marise's clothing that she wore that day. And guess what? It matched Forte on February 3rd. On February 3rd of 2022, they had a match. Now, James Paul Forte was not a newbie in the town when it came to sexual assault or when it came to just sexual assault in general. He was charged with involuntary, deviant sexual intercourse and sexual assault in 1974 in a completely unrelated case. He was given a plea deal and he was convicted of aggravated assault and he only got 1 year of probation. Kind of like a slap on the wrist, but that happens now, it happened then, it will continue to happen. As unfortunate as that sounds, no, I'm not really pleased with that, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. So James Forte would never be arrested because of how I mentioned prior. He had passed away due to a heart attack at the bar he worked at. Police gather that there was a sexual motive behind this, that he saw her and he took her and that he needed to take advantage of her. But what are your thoughts when it comes to this case? We know who killed her, kind of know why, but what do you think about this case? Leave them in the comments down below. I want to know what you think about this. And with that, my friends, that is the murder of Marise Chiverella, and I will see you guys in another video.